Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, we'll kick things off talking about a very popular mod for Smash Brothers for the N64. It's called Smash Remix, and we've talked about it in previous videos. This is basically a mod that adds a whole bunch of extra characters, stages, music, and even more. And Smash Remix version 1.5.0 just released. This new version brings about a whole bunch of different changes, including introducing some brand new characters like Banjo-Kazooie and a bunch of polygon variants. There's also some new stages like Scuttletown from Shantae, Big Boo's Haunt from Super Mario 64, Dinosaur Land from Super Mario World, and even more. On top of that, there were a bunch of character fixes and balancing updates, as well as some minor tweaks and bug fixes. This is a pretty big update. However, their YouTube channel where they showcase all of these updates seems to have been taken down. Here's what they had to say on Twitter. "We unfortunately must confirm that YouTube has deleted our channel. It has done so based on alleged violations of its harmful and dangerous policy. We appealed the decision as we believe this policy does not apply to our content. However, that appeal was declined instantaneously." They then say, "We also want to ease any concerns about the overall status of the project. This deletion was not based on the actions of any copyright holders or complaints, but comes strictly from YouTube's internal systems." Now, I might disagree with that just a little bit. I mean, YouTube's systems have to be set up in the first place. It's not like they automatically choose stuff for no reason at all. I'm assuming Nintendo at some point in time put something in place to flag videos like this. Now, you can disagree with me if you want, and if you do, let me know in the comments below, and let me know exactly why you disagree. I mean, I can't see YouTube completely deleting a channel for dangerous and harmful content without any sort of motive. I mean, there's a lot of questionable content on YouTube, and a lot of the time, individual videos get taken down, but the channel stays. On top of that, as a refresher, back in October of last year, Nintendo updated their online sharing guidelines, and they're not friendly to this kind of thing. If you wanted to read more about Nintendo's policy in detail, I'll drop a link to this in the description below. But under question 11, what do you mean by content that is unlawful, infringing, or inappropriate? Under the answer here, Nintendo would probably argue that Smash Remix violates a whole bunch of this stuff. I've highlighted a few things here, and without reading everything in detail, at a high level, the way I understand it is if Nintendo doesn't authorize it, Nintendo doesn't like it. And the question beforehand, will there be cases where Nintendo will remove content from sharing platforms? And Nintendo says, yes, we reserve the right to remove any content we believe is unlawful, infringing, inappropriate, or not in line with the guidelines. In some cases, Nintendo may take down videos on behalf of our third-party partners. And all of this takes me back to my point where I can't see YouTube deleting the Smash Remix channel all on their own. There has to be fuel to that fire. I'm assuming these Nintendo guidelines are fuel to that fire. I'm assuming that Nintendo provided these guidelines to YouTube in some way, shape, or form, and then YouTube fed them into their systems for their systems to do their thing. I'll stop myself before I go on ranting too long here, but there are some other YouTube channels that showcase Smash Remix version 1.5.0. I'll drop a link to one in the description below. Moving on, and we're talking about Nuon Emulation with Nuance, and Nuance has just released version 0.6.5. We've got a whole bunch of bug fixes, some optimizations, and a new feature. It hides the mouse cursor when in full screen mode. Now, for those who may not be aware, the Nuon was a very weird system. It was released by Samsung back in 2000 and utilized DVD technology and only had a handful of games. And to be specific, it only had 8 games. I'll drop a link to this Wikipedia article in the description below in the event that you wanted to learn more about it. Next up, this one is crazy. If you've got an old ATI graphics card, specifically the R300 to the R500, AMD still has you covered. These things are over 20 years old, and AMD is still issuing driver updates. To be honest with you, if you've got an old R300, chances are you're not doing a whole lot of modern stuff with it, or maybe you somehow are. If you've got one, let me know in the comments below. Next up, we're talking about Sega Saturn emulation on Android with Yaba Sanshiro 2 and Yaba Sanshiro 2 Pro. One is free and one is paid. Both the free and the paid version of Yaba Sanshiro received the exact same update. They added support for keyboard controls. They integrated automatic and manual state saving. and they discontinued cloud state saving. Next up, we're talking about A5200DS. It's an Atari 5200 emulator for the Nintendo DS. There's been a lot of updates for emulators on the Nintendo DS this year, and we've got another one. Version 3.5a is the latest update, and this update is pretty big for this emulator. They've added in a new overlay, they've tweaked the look and feel of things, they've improved performance. In fact, many games on the older DS Lite will now run at full speed without frame skip. And they added 50 new homebrews and hacks to the database. Moving on, and we're talking about PlayStation 2 emulation with PCSX2. And if you play a certain series of games, you're going to like this update. If you recognize this controller, PCSX2 now supports this controller type. We can see here right on PCSX2's GitHub, add Poppin' Music controller type. Adds an implementation of the Poppin' Music controller. Yep, that's the whole thing. Overall, I think there are about 8 or 9 versions of Poppin' Music on the PS2. I could be wrong. If you play Poppin' Music, let me know in the comments below. Next up, this one is wild. We talked about this story when it broke just a few days ago. The 13-year-old kid that beat the NES version of Tetris, the first person in the world to do it. And since then, 2 more people have beaten the game. I'm not joking with you. One of the other people who just beat the game is Fractal161. I'll drop a link to this YouTube video in the description below. And the second person here is Pixel Andy. I'll drop a link to this YouTube video in the description below as well. There must be something in the water. I mean, this kid beating the game was massive news. No one had ever done it before, or at least no one had ever done it before that had recorded it. And now we've got 3 people who have accomplished this amazing feat in a very short period of time. Next up, we're quickly talking about the Steam Deck, and we've got some insight to the next changes for SteamOS. They added a slider to control the brightness of the status LED, the charger LED. They fixed a case where the Wi-Fi would fail to connect, and they fixed HDR on some external DisplayPort displays because it was slightly desaturated. And speaking about Steam, next up we're talking about Portal Revolution, a community-made mod for Portal 2. This thing just dropped. It's 100% free, and it's got an overwhelmingly positive review score. Apparently this mod was 8 years in development, and it looks absolutely fantastic. If you're a fan of Portal 2 and you wanted to breathe some new life into the game, you may want to check out Portal Revolution. And speaking about Steam, next up we're still talking about a game on Steam but shifting over to a different game, Mouse. We talked about this one in a previous video. It's a first-person shooter with a very unique art style. And we've just got some more gameplay footage. Unfortunately, we've only got 4 seconds of footage, but that's to be expected. This game isn't set to be released until 2025. If you haven't seen Mouse before, I'll drop a link to this trailer in the description below and let me know what you think about it. And speaking about YouTube, next up we're talking about Mortal Kombat on the Atari Jaguar. Yeah, someone's actually porting the arcade version of this game to the Atari Jaguar. It's absolutely crazy. They've got a YouTube video showing their work in progress, and I'll drop a link to it in the description below. On top of that, and we've talked about this one before, someone else is porting the arcade version of MK2 to the Panasonic 3DO. They just released an updated coding video, and I'll drop a link to it in the description below. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and one fluff. Let me know your thoughts about anything we talked about today in the comments below. If you liked this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate, save your state.